The competitive 40K network presents Art of War.
Art of War.
Strategy and tactics. Discussions with the best players on the planet. Now your host, Nick Nanavati.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Art of War 40K podcast. I'm your host, Nick Nanavati, and this week we are joined by a very, very special guest who I'm sure you might recognize from his own sister podcast Down Under, Mr. Adam Camelleri. Adam, how are you doing?
G'day, mates. I'm doing pretty dang well. Lovely to be on the venerable flagship once again, or the vanilla as I call it.
That's right. This is the OG.
It's been a couple of years between drinks. I think this is my fourth time on the show. Just shows you how often I've won things in recent years.
And you're still
done well, even.
You know, you're still at it. You're crushing it. You just came off of a GT win with Imperial Knights, a faction that honestly people are sleeping on. This faction is doing really, really well all over the world, in America and Australia. And this is a different list than the last couple Imperial Knights lists we've had. So they've got actual faction diversity with an army with so few data sheets, which I'm so excited to see. Adam, we're going to be talking about that.
Yes, we are. Now, you will find that essentially people have realized that that Armigers in a bunch of different matchups are just better than War Dogs because of their innate 6-up resilience for no pain and access to, a much wider suite of agent options rather than it just being, Chaos Demons that come with an offset and lots of more terms and conditions for Chaos Knights. But I didn't do any of that. I did take some agents, but I went far off the spamming Armigers road.
Dude, I'm so excited to hear about it. Before we get into it, let me just remind listeners, this is part one of a two-part conversation. You can listen to this. This is free, of course. Adam and I are going to go through his journey with Warhammer. We're going to talk about his Imperial Knights list, how it actually works, go through the whole thing. But if you want more, if that doesn't satiate you, or if you just want to support the show, you can do so on Patreon. That's patreon.com/AOW40K. $5 a month gets you access to this part two, along with 280 plus other part twos. Adam and I are going to talk about all of his games in detail from this GT. We're going to learn about model placement, deployment strategies, all that good stuff that you don't want to miss. And as if that was not enough, you will also be able to access our Discord server where you can talk to Adam or myself or any of the other Art of War coaches directly. It literally doesn't get better than that. Okay, Adam, I'm done spieling. Now I want to hear from you. Tell me about yourself, man. It's been a minute since we've caught up. You've been playing a lot of Warhammer. You've been playing a little bit. I have no idea. What's going on with you?
I have been playing quite a lot of Warhammer. In fact, I'm playing the most Warhammer that I've played in probably the last 2 to 3. Actually, probably the most Warhammer I've played since the pandemic happened. Prior to the pandemic, I was, kind of crunching, trying to get into, WTC mode because I'd played 2018 and 2019 and I was still trying to get back to my best. And then the pandemic happened and I was in the state of Australia that had the most days in lockdown of any place in the world. And so it took me a long time to get the juices flowing once again. And but yeah, I'm playing more Warhammer than I've played in a very long time. I recently played for my home state at the ANZTC. I played Grey Knights there. And I've been playing here, there and everywhere ever since. Like I think I was doing 2 to 3 games a week in the lead up to that for like the 3 or 4 months before that, which is a lot for me.
That's a lot from almost everybody. 2 to 3 games a week is like what I'm doing right now as I prep for WTC. That's pretty amazing.
Rookie numbers, mate. You got to pump up those numbers.
We're going to pump them up in June. June's coming. So tell me, like, what has spurred this influx of playing more Warhammer? I know you do your own Down Under show. You are also commentator for Games Workshop on their streams, and you guest appearance on like a million other shows as well, all over the place. Where do you even find the time?
Yeah, well, you got to kind of craft it, and it usually involves me recording extra of everything in order to get weekends free, in order to play games and or playing pickup games, in my garage or somewhere local at an FLGS during the week. And it's been really nice and really freeing to just be able to pick up games when I need them. Like I have a couple of lovely lads who live close by to me who are willing to come to my place or me go to their place, and we'll just rock out a rep or two. So that's been great for theory crafting. And then I've had to shift around my life a little bit in order to make it to Dean's Dungeon, as we call it, where our national captain holds court in his garage, where everyone kind of congregates and gets the big kind of important reps in, the ones where the iron sharpens iron, when you're guaranteed to play somebody who's as good as you or better, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so, absolutely. That's the stuff that makes you strong.
Exactly right. So I've been prioritizing doing that at least once a fortnight. in the lead up to ANZTC, and then ongoing hopefully since. But I've taken a couple of weeks off in this kind of down period because I'm about to be traveling a lot. I've got headed. I'm commentating Dallas as we speak. About 24 hours from now, I'll be commentating Dallas remotely, and then I'm off to Canada for the Warhammer Open Edmonton, and then I'm off to WTC. So it's going to be back to back for a bit for me. So getting the games in where I can. But this all happened. So especially the switch over to Imperial Knights. So I had a little bit of a self-reflection point, which I encourage everybody to do, because essentially I'd only played Guard and Marines for 12 years. That was everything and anything I'd ever played.
You literally read my mind, Adam. This was actually going to be my next question. Is like, normally I know you as a Guard player, and now you're playing Knights. Tell me about this.
So I had a decent amount of vouchers from just some if I do extra work for GW here, there, articles, videos, stuff like that, or I do overtime because of the nature of our arrangement and me being difficult to employ, not residing in the United States or the UK. Sometimes they'll slap me some vouchers for the shop. And I went there with my vouchers in hand at LVO and was going to go and buy everything I would ever need to fill out the rest of my Guard army, which is at 14,000 points of painted Guard and growing. And I realized the money that I had wasn't enough to buy everything I needed to continue to play Guard at the top level. That was at the time where, all the Death Quarter Krieg stuff had just come out. So I wanted some of the new artillery batteries. I wanted a bunch of new Kriegsmen. I wanted the guys who threw the grenades for free. Those dudes, I needed those guys. Yeah, a bunch of stuff. And the new Rough Riders and everything else in between. And then I realized I didn't have enough money for that. And that was really disheartening. It was disheartening to be like, I have a good amount of money here and a discount on top, and I still can't get everything I need for this army. And then so I walked away, didn't buy anything, sat with it overnight, and went back and was just like, I think I'm done for a bit. I think I'm done on the grind of constantly having to paint new models for this one army that I've been strapped to for over a decade. And so I windmill slammed and just went for it for something that I've wanted to do for a long time, which is to play Imperial Knights. I've got a wonderful, gorgeous Chaos Knight army being painted by one of the wonderful sponsors of Art of War. Adam Abramowitz is currently painting my Chaos Knights.
From the Army Painter.
Yes, lovely gentleman he is, one of my favorite people on this planet. Also, one of the guys who was instrumental in me getting into content creation via him doing the Best General podcast. And so I went and bought the money that I had was enough to buy pretty much an entire Imperial Knight army. And if I magnetized it, apart from GW bringing out new models, I'd probably never have to buy another model for that army again. And awesome. I was like, I could just kind of unplug myself from the matrix for a little bit. And I've been on this kind of hamster wheel of always, I've got like 12,000 points of painted Dark Angels as well. And I still don't have everything I need for my Dark Angels. And that was just kind of like, okay, I need to get off the grind. I don't have enough time in my life anymore to continue with the grind. I'm hoping I will again someday soon. But for the time being, I need a little bit different out of my hobby. So I pivoted it into an army that could be evergreen. And in addition to that, I like Imperial Knights. I've always loved the lore. Actually, I adore the lore. I adore the different houses and all the different color schemes and stuff like that. And I actually attached myself to a piece of fluff because there's a night house that's very closely related to the Dark Angels. And so I decided to collect them. And so I went and bought an entire Knight army, built everything, fully magnetized it, reposed all the legs, got everything glued, and took my time sticking everything together and enjoying the hobby aspect again. And then I sent it off to a good mate of mine, Ben, who is the commission painter for one of my local stores. He was in need of a bit of work, and they were trying to get the commission portion of the business up and going. So I sent it through to them. They painted it up gorgeously for me. And I was able to take it to my very first GT, which we're talking about.
Awesome, man. That sounds like you've been busy, and I'm glad you're finding fulfillment in all the different aspects of your hobby. Obviously, this is a competitive show. We typically talk about gameplay and styles and strategies and all that stuff, but, it's nice to hear that you're enjoying the lore in the hobby and really connecting with all that stuff.
Well, it's been very liberating for me to pivot. And I think I've found it rewarding in my gameplay. Like when I focus entirely on trying to be the best player that I can, I find that I'm not. When I take the shackles off and just enjoy playing the game again, I find I play better. And that's just me understanding myself.
I think that's actually very common, right? Like a lot of players, myself included, kind of just do better when you're genuinely enjoying the game instead of forcing yourself to be on the grind. I think that probably applies to most things in life, but it's super applicable to Warhammer here.
Yeah, exactly right. And Guard's an exhausting army to be playing for a long time. And I've been playing them for 12 years. Like, everything is a minutia choice. You've got so many activations, so many models on the table at a time. You always play, the 2 time. You always play your 90 minutes, on the clock, whatnot. You rarely finish early. And I want more time to hang with the community that I love. I want more time to, hang around with my mates and talk crap and all those beautiful things.
Playing Astra Militarum for 10 years sounds like eating a white toast with mayonnaise for 10 years to me, but
Oh, took years of my life, undoubtedly.
There's something I want to connect back to the gameplay. So you played Guard for 10 years. Obviously, that's shaped your perspective on how you approach Warhammer. And I know you talk to people all around the world who play all sorts of factions and keep up with the rules. So I'm not trying to insinuate that you don't know what's going on with other factions. But obviously, there's a style thing, right? Like, someone who plays Eldar all the time is not going to just go pick up and play World Eaters to the same effect. So how have you found that transition, playing Guard for 10 years and now you're playing Knights?
So I found it so it kind of tunnel visions you down to just a few things done perfectly, rather than trying to make the sum of 10 activations into a winning strategy, if that makes sense. Like, you're going from a kind of a macro to a micro look at the game. So it's actually very similar to playing Tau. I've found, because I played Tau for a WTC calendar year and stuff like that, and I found that Tau was something that you didn't have to do a lot, but what you did had to be perfect. Like, every single shot that you shot, every time you laid a marker light, every time you tried to take an objective or score a card, everything needed to be perfect. And Knights are very similar to that, but you have few activations and a lot of time to make those decisions.
Right.
Conversely, because I've played games where I've used, 30 minutes of my clock, and I played five turns.
Yeah, I mean, you have like 10 models? Like, that's not the hard part, right?
Correct. It's not. And so what you do need to do is make sure that everything you do goes through a couple of brain filters, like the brain filters of, what does this result for me? What is this going to result for my opponent? What perspective of the game and what look of the game am I giving to them? Do they see me as the aggressor or the person in the defensive position? Do they see me as somebody who's going to be in the lead soon or behind, etc.? And so every time I move a model in my Knights army, I've started like bubbling it down to a couple of checks and balances that I must go through to do anything with my army. And it's actually been really nice to just have everything go through a couple of different filters or qualifying questions almost. Like, is this going to result in this knight dying? Is this going to result in me trading this piece? And if I do trade it, what am I getting for that trade? Is it resulting in a net gain, net negative? Am I going to be putting my opponent in a position that they're going to get this one, but then I get to pick up something of significance from them, and forcing a trade, etc. And so it's been really, really cool to just bubble it down, because I think with Guard especially, once you could have the most grandest freaking plan of all time with Guard, and then once you're deep in the source of the shooting phase, you're 6 activations in with like 7 to go, everything's out the window.
Yeah, right. You're just rolling dice at that point. Yeah,
you're just throwing enough dice to make them go away. You're essentially the orcs of the shooting phase, and it's just Oh wait, sorry, more Daka exists. The orcs of the
orcs are now the Guard. But
yeah, orcs are now the Guard.
I'm curious, Adam. You mentioned that Knights have a lot more to do on the micro side of things, as opposed to just like just shoot them until they go away. And what I find so interesting about that is, when I don't play Knights, let's start with that caveat. They have 10 models. They don't have unit coherency. They don't have the infantry keyword. There's a lot of elements to the game that they don't get to play with. So to me, they're not making use of a lot of the micro tactics that exist in the game. They're trying to get the right macro strategy. All your knights need to be in the right spots. All your target priority needs to be spot on. But then it as an outsider looking on, it kind of looks like, all right, I've lined up these 3 Armigers. Their goal is to kill that tank. Let's roll a dice and see if it happens. Where do you find that that's not true, I guess? How do you plan around that?
So you're absolutely correct. So in that, but when you go past that, yeah, sure, because that's what everyone does to everybody in 10th edition 40k. Everyone will pull out enough resources to remove a thing. Where the minutia comes in is making sure that every one of those knights that comes out to try and kill the Lehman Russ has cover. if they're going to be charged, has a heroic intervention, strategy built into for their protection, or has the ability to have a debuff upon them, which we'll talk about when we get into my list, that makes them more resilient than my opponent believes that they are, as in like the over-under of their commitment is incorrect, or possibly put that question on them, as in like give them are you allocating the right resources for this model's removal, etc. And then so the minutia is making sure you always have the optimum play in response. Because everyone brings out everything. Everybody can shoot and put enough resources in CP to remove anything that they want in this game, bar like a handful of units. Those units are like Deathwing Knights and freaking Custody Wardens and stuff like that. And even then, you can still kill them. It's just not all the time. So the thing is, what you want to be doing with Knights is not trading. And the not trading is where the minutia is. And that results in usually having to try and have perfect positioning, which is the most difficult thing to do, of course, because trying to be perfect, you don't fully understand what your opponent can do all the time. They might have a strat you haven't quite conjured in your head at the time of moving in Knight, or, a rapid ingress that you don't perceive. Well, you don't really have screens, so you're kind of at the whims of rapid ingress as well. So, what are you putting out? Where are you putting it? Everything, despite it being like essentially wielding 10 tanks, every time you lose a tank, it's huge. Every time you lose any model, it's huge. So you want to limit every possible avenue for mistake.
This is so fascinating.
That's the minutia. That's the micro.
I have literally had Knight players on the channel before, like within the past 3 months, come on and tell me Knights are a trade-based army. And, they've also won tournaments and stuff, which just tells me that there's more than one way to do it, right? And like you have two big Knights, which is very different to the other list we've had on. Adam, I want to unpack your list and how you play it in detail, but I feel like we need the context of what your list actually is. Can you just read it off top to bottom?
Yep, let's do it. So we start off with a Knight Lancer with Mysterious Guardian. No, I didn't take Canis Rex.
What?
No, I didn't.
I assumed he was in there.
I threw away the Canis Crutch, ladies and gentlemen.
Dude, I know you sent me your list ahead of time, and I looked it up. My eyes auto-populated Canis Rex into
Canis Rex. Yeah. Then we have the next crazy thing we'll need to unpack a lot. This is a Knight Warden with Mythic Hero. So he gives double bondsman ability. And then we have 3 Helverins, 3 Warglaves, a Sisters of Battle Immolator, and a unit of 10 Sisters of Battle. And that's the entire list. And there are 30 points missing if you try and put this list into your app as well. And no, there's nothing you can do with it. I tried so hard.
Oh my God.
All right, bring on the silly questions. Let's go.
Okay. So tell me in your words how exactly this works. Like what is the strategy here? What is the plan with these weird Knights?
So this whole strategy is built on the premise, and I don't know if you'll agree or disagree with this, that most often a game of 40k is decided by turn 4. And that has been my experience as a commentator, as a player, as an analyst. Most games of 40k are decided on turn 4 or by turn 4. Someone has a points lead, and usually they'll be able to hang on to it. So the premise of this list is that I have a Knight Warden that gives out 2 sources of -1 damage to 2 Armigers, and 2 Armigers will be exposed on turn 1, on turn 2, and turn 3. And all Armigers, all available targets that you have will have -1 damage for the first couple of turns of the game at a minimum, unless I get an all-in opportunity, which does happen. This is played to be, and I didn't see this as a very aggressive list when I wrote it, but it played very aggressively. And I've been told by all the other Knight players that I've told this list about that, oh my God, you played that so aggressively. Because this is trying to stress my opponent's understanding of the game. This is giving my opponent opportunities to make mistakes. So a lot of the time, turn 1, my Immolator goes to the expansion. It's usually got the 5 sisters in it that have the guns. It goes on the expansion, especially if I'm not playing against a super unit that requires the Squire's Duty ignores cover combo. If I'm playing against Centurions, I'm playing against, Thunderkin, stuff like that. Something that will table me if not accounted for. I will play the Immolator just like it's another Warglaive. It'll go sit on my expansion objective. And then either the expansion or the middle objective will get 1 or 2 -1 damage Armigers. Now, a -1 damage Armiger, and I did a lot of meta-analysis before, locking in on this list. Outside of the Guard and Votan games, a -1 damage Armiger is almost as hard to kill as a Big Knight.
Wow.
It's almost
just because the 6 of penal pain, the -1 damage, it just makes it that difficult.
Correct.
Wow.
Yep, it throws off so much of the math for what people can expose to remove a Knight, or what people believe they can expose to remove a Knight. Now, I'm not sure if this list has enormous replayability. I'm going to test it and find out, but we may have a new Knight Codex coming, and we'll see what happens then. But the premise was, I'm going to throw out Knights on turn 1. which a lot of Knight players don't do, especially our beautiful man, Brian, who we've watched on many things. He very rarely throws out a Knight on turn 1. I'm going to throw out 2 on turn 1. And you're going to have to expose a huge portion of your army early to guarantee their removal. And it's very hard to guarantee their removal because combined they are 24 wounds with a 6 up, feel no pain, 5 up, invuln, 3 up, and -1 damage. It's a lot. It is a lot to kill. If you are 2 damage, you have statistically 14 instances of damage that need to go through toughness 10, a 3 up, 5 up, 6 up.
Yeah,
it's a lot.
The 2 damage is like the worst profile of putting these -1 damage armor. It's embarrassing.
Correct.
Yeah,
and yet the vast majority of melee armies in the game are wielding 2 damage.
Yeah.
Blood Angels, Necrons, Bile, CSM is mostly 2 damage. Hell, Emperor's Children, mostly 2 damage. I could go on and on and on. There's so many armies in the game that their melee only is damage 2.
And you play the WTC format down under, right? That's very common there.
Yes, correct.
So
this one was Games Workshop format, the one that I played.
Oh wow. Okay, I was gonna say in a WTC format, melee infantry is a lot more popular and common because of all the terrain density. But apparently it still works in GW.
And I will tell you right now, it's probably 80% of games that we play down here are WTC layout and format. And so therefore, even if it's not being played at the time, it still vastly influences what people take or people consider is good or bad, etc.
Right, because that's your experiences and their perspectives.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can get the plan so far. We have these extra durable knights, which require like a ludicrous amount of commitment. Honestly, don't even die to like most things, especially like on bottom of 1 or top of 2. Like your opponent, has to expose a lot to actually remove these knights.
Yeah.
Where does the game go from there?
The game goes from there is that they will expose a significant portion of their army, usually aggressive assets, and then the Lancer will more often than not start the game in reserve. Rapid ingress on turn 2 and be a bowling ball that tries to remove their best thing, like kind of like a heat-seeking missile. Because rapid ingress is 9 away, maybe further away if I need to be safe, and then moves 14 and declares a charge. So it just yeets itself right into your opponent's army and either tries to tag a bunch of stuff like Rogal Dawns, or just tries to wallop into the powerful thing you've exposed that kills knights. So it's a bit of a bait and switch. And of course, having the Mysterious Garden on the Lancer is fantastic because, of course, you rapid ingress it, charge it in, and ideally they turn around a bunch of stuff because now they've got a Cerastus Knight in their lines. They turn around a bunch of stuff, they try and kill it, but you've thrown enough little misdirection pieces in their way because, of course, you had 2 knights starting up the board, and if either of those are alive, they go in as well. You pull out the Warden, start shooting some stuff with him as well. All those dev wounds are fantastic into all the infantry that's been taken in the game at the moment, and then you bounce the Lancer out after they fail to kill it, if they fail to kill it, and they don't even get to kill it. You just bounce it out to your backfield with the once per game uppy downy, and you can almost fog a turn of your opponent's output.
Wow. Okay, so Lancer ingressing is a big part of the combo, and the Warden's here to provide -1 damage to 2 different armigers every turn.
Correct.
Nice. How are you playing the Warden while the early game is happening?
You're never going to see it. It's going to be the safest.
Hiding.
It's going to be the safest piece in my army until I either decide to all in you or I try and tempo the game out. It's going to be the last thing that comes out, usually turn 3 or turn 4. It'll be exposed, and until then, it's just going to be sitting there, giving out the bondsman abilities. Usually, I'll try and get it into an L, somewhere where it can reach into the middle and continue to apply its buff to Armiger's staging. And sometimes it'll step out and try and kill stuff that you use to threaten my expansions and stuff. Of course, people are going to want to do that. They're always going to want to try and flip your expansion. And so sometimes it can be the response force to go and clean those up.
Interesting. Okay, so a very popular knight list, different to what you're running, is something like Canis and then 10-ish Armiger Helverins, something like that.
Yep.
How that list tries to like put 1 or 2 Armigers on the midfield objectives early, kind of like you are. They don't have -1 damage, and then your opponent exposes their anti-tank, and then you kill their anti-tank, and then you just stat check them from there in an oversimplified version. What is the difference between your approach and their approach from a results level? Like, why is yours better?
I wouldn't necessarily say mine is better. I like mine more because it results in the knights that are on the objectives not dying. So many people can kill 2 knights, and of course they will expose the best portions of their army to guarantee those things go away, and of course you'll get to respond to them. But the difference is there's actually a chance that mine live, and there's actually a good chance, and I will tell you right now, after my 6 games, they did live very, very, very often, and resulted in massive primary swings and then pressure upon my opponent to do wild things in order to swing it back their way. And so pretty much every game I was, like I said, I built this to, put myself in a winning position going into turn 4. And I'll tell you, every single game that I played, it worked a treat because the stuff I had on my objectives did not die. And I was getting like max primary on turn 2 and turn 3 sometimes.
Wow. That's really exciting. So it sounds like this was kind of tailored and teched for damage 2 melee and like the abundance of damage 2.
It was teched exclusively for the top of my meta. Like
Yeah.
I literally looked at the guys I played on the ANZ TC team, which are probably pretty much, probably about 8 of the best kind of 20 players in my state. And I ran through this list, going through all the lists that I just seen at ANZ TC, which of course is our national WTC competition. And I was like, yep, it's good versus them. If I can just not play a lot of Voten and Guard, I think I am absolutely rolling. I'm absolutely good to go. And so it's good against pretty much every melee army that was played in my meta. It was good against all the Eldari armies played in my meta, with the exception of people. Well, it was actually just good against every Eldari army. It was fantastic against every Necron army, every Chaos Space Marine army. I do have questions whether this will hold up versus Death Guard, which I have not played with this list yet, and we'll have to wait and see if that is the case or not. And I knew it was going to be pretty dang good into Empress Children as well.
This is so fascinating because partly our meta looks very different to yours, and then otherwise you also are saying you're winning matchups that I assume you would struggle with. So let's unpack Eldari really quick. Right, they have fire dragons. Fire dragons, yeah, -1 damage is annoying, but D6 +2 instead of D6 +3 still going to kill you. How does this even make a difference there?
Well, where it breaks it is that, sure, nothing you can do as a knight player is going to save you from the fire dragons. Straight up. The only thing you can do is try and overwatch them if they let you. If they don't use their ability, cool. Yeah, maybe you do, maybe you don't. Doesn't matter.
That's your plan.
Exactly right. They only need 2 or 3 guys to kill your Armiger. So worrying about the fire dragons is irrelevant. It's an irrelevance. You take them as opportunity and you hope to 1-for-1 them. It's like you trade one knight for 1 unit of fire dragons. If you do that, you still have 3 Armigers and 2 big boys. That's enough. It significantly changes their output of their melee assets. So the Banshees do ludicrously nothing.
Yeah,
absolutely nothing. Same with their 3 damage and their adjoined Autarch. They do absolutely nothing. They're taken out of the game completely. Also, completely changes the math on Dark Reapers. So Dark Reapers going from 4 instances of likely damage going through to killing you to 5 instances. And then the feel no pain. 6 instances, and then the feel no pain.
Right.
Completely breaks the math on even 2 units of Dark Reapers killing 1 Armiger.
Yeah.
So that was the other one I was looking at. I'm like, so only the fire dragons do any damage. Literally only the fire dragons.
And there's only 3 units of dragons at most.
Exactly.
So, like you can mitigate everything else and then
it's fine.
Just live the dragons. Right.
It's actually just fine. And the funniest thing is you kind of just bum rush the objectives and sit there and win the game.
Yeah. Because Eldar's they don't have high OC, dislodging is difficult. Right.
Exactly. They don't have enough OC to flip objectives on you. They kind of have if they draw the absolute nuts on their secondary cards, they can do, you will have to play the game a bit more. But most of the time, if you are just holding a triangle, which you can hold versus them pretty effectively, especially if the only 2 that they can actively get to easily are -1 damage, means they have to use fire dragons, which means by turn 3, there's no fire dragons and they're out of luck. They can't do anything anymore. You kind of just don't even shoot them. You can't just sit there in the open. They can have units in the open and you just don't give them lethal intents. You just sit there and max your primary, which is, funnily enough, you'll hear about my game 6. This was the strategy I had in my brain. I didn't actually play Yunari at this event. I did run it through with our Yunari player at the event who played at the ANZTC with us. And he's like, yeah, that's exactly what happens. I can't kill you. And I'll tell you about.
I'm excited to hear that all in part.
The full download,
for sure. Right.
But that strat worked way better than I thought it was. Also, the Lancer is a big problem. So the Lancer having an invuln doesn't die to a single activation of fire dragons. Almost definitely doesn't die to a single activation of fire dragons if you have a CP for a 4-up invulnerable save, which means they have to use the second one, which means you get an opportunity to overwatch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I can see that. Now, what about like other types of long range shooting? You mentioned Guard and Votan potentially problematic, but I'm thinking also Space Marines, at least here, is giga popular. Like Ultramarine Gladius, Triple Ballistus, and they add some Vindicators or Lancers. That's a list.
It absolutely is. And that is one that I have as like yellowish. I back myself to win that because of my understanding of the matchup. Like I play that. I've got 20 reps on that list, and I've played against it 100 million times. And against the Space Marine lists, they actually have the same amount of units as you do.
That's true. They're not a real unit abundant army.
If they're a Guilliman, Calgar, double or triple Vindy, double or triple Ballistus, they actually just have the same amount of units as you. And so if you put yourself in a positive trading position, you kind of just win that. Also, I will say Vindys are very swingy against -1 damage knights, extremely swingy. They can do absolutely nothing, or they can one-shot you. And the second they don't one-shot, they're dead to an absolute negative, like to an absolute negative trade. And so that's what my plan was, to wield that. Just be like, here's a -1 damage knight. You can't guarantee that that one Vindy kills this. You can't even guarantee that one Vindy and one Ballistus kill this. So you're going to have to bring out 2. And as soon as you bring out 2, and I pick both them up, if I pick both them up, all of a sudden I'm in the winning position.
So that brings me to my next question, and you kind of glossed over it before, but I want to get into the details of it.
Apologies.
Now. No, you're fine, Adam. How do you deal damage? I mean, obviously your knights have guns, they do profiles and lancer slams and stuff, but if you're having, multiple vindicators with AOC and cover, or ballistus, or as you mentioned, thunderwolves earlier, like a tough army to kill that can reasonably get engaged, lock you up, tie you up, the durable armies, how do you handle the durable armies?
So I can definitely give the example of the Necron game.
That's a good one.
The -1 damage versus Space Wolves is a very interesting thing, because it absolutely cooks the Space Wolves, but doesn't actually stop the characters killing you. So that one is, I call this you have to use a certain formation that I invented. Essentially, it just means you're pairing up all your knights. Every knight comes with a buddy. You're playing the buddy system of knights, so that no matter what, you can try and split up their activation by a heroic of making them split up their characters. Because if both characters activate into a -1 damage knight, they absolutely kill it, especially if it's oathed. And so I was always trying to buddy up my knights into aggressive opponents, so they had the option to heroic and try and base one of those characters, so it had to fight in a certain direction, almost like a baby Sanguinor play.
Yeah.
It can be dodged, but it can't be dodged that well by Space Wolves, because they have to funnel through certain avenues. You kind of know how they're going to come at you. And in addition to that, I also had some big knights. And the big knights, especially the Lancer, with its 4-up invulnerable save, just kind of smacks them. Just kind of smacks them about the head. 10 attacks, hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s is a perfect... wounding on 3s with the reroll is a perfect profile for removing those guys. And in addition, the free tank shock. So I was banking on multiple tank shocks, a little bit of precision when I need it to take out a problem character, because of course, if I charge a unit of Thundercav and I precision out one of the characters, that unit is actually no longer a threat. As soon as it's down to one character, like you take out the Warlord and or the one that gives them the surge move, the battle leader, that unit's actually already kind of managed, because the actual Thundercap models are not that big a threat with -1 damage, and the wrong kind of strength and AP profiles. So that was I thought that was going to be a very interesting matchup. I haven't had a chance to play that one just yet, but in my head, it's not as bad as it seems. There also is the fact that, like, every gun that I have is a threat. Like every single one, like every melter, every melter lance, every Armiger autocannon is a threat to them, whereas they have a huge amount of profiles that aren't a threat to me.
Yeah. What I'm thinking of is with the unkillable armies, or hard unkillable, or just difficult to kill, like Thunderwolves and Wraiths and things like that. They can park on the objectives and compete with you on OC, right?
So literally, I played against Necrons in the final of the GT. Mm-hmm. And the strategy that I used against the Inari is the same strategy against them, because -1 damage makes them completely damage anemic.
Yeah.
Even their Scorpex, they go to damage 1.
This -1 damage tech is pretty clever, Adam. I gotta say.
Wraiths are damage 1. Don't care. Geez, nothing in their army does any damage to me anymore.
No, it's like Doomsday Arcs going down damage 3, and then your Helverins can clap them back pretty well.
Correct. Yeah, win them on 2s with anti-fly. And so literally I just do the same strat. I just be like, well, I'm going to put a Lancer and 2 Armigers on the middle objective. Both those Armigers are going to have -1 damage. And then I'm going to put the Warden and an Armiger on my expansion, and then both unit assisters and my last 2 Armigers play defense on my home. And essentially, if I get to the objectives before you are, the game is actually over. I've played it twice now. It's actually over, because I body block enough of the objective that you can't get enough OC on the flip, because it's 26 OC on that middle objective with -1 damage and a freaking Lancer. You do not kill through it in 5 turns, and it was a thing of beauty. I did to them what they do to everyone else.
Wonderful. I'm so excited to hear about all that in part 2, but I got a few more questions up here in part 1.
If you are listening to this, it probably means you play Warhammer 40k. And if you're playing Warhammer, you know you need a lot of dice. Baron of Dice is where we get our dice from. They produce amazing different kinds of dice. We just recently got all kinds of different faction dice shipped to us, which we use on our stream games. But not only do they look really cool, but they're highly customizable. You can get different symbols, corners that are square, corners that are round, different shapes and sizes, different sided dice. It's all the rage. And they're customizable in color and design as well. They are so cool looking. Not only that, but they feel great to roll in your hands. I've never held dice that roll and feel this good. Not only that, but they are scientifically perfectly balanced. There are tons of case studies on people rolling thousands of dice and recording all the results that they get. And sometimes you might get a die that rolls just a few too many ones. We've all had to throw it out before. These dice are not like that. They are perfectly balanced to a T, thousands of rolls, perfect distribution. If you want to take your Warhammer game seriously and make sure the dice are not screwing you over, get some Baron of dice.
How are you playing secondaries? Like, you have so few models and they're all so busy shooting.
Yep. So I have this weird case point for the analysis of the stratagem suite available to Imperial Knights. And I'm kind of the opinion you need Squire, you need a, when you need Squire's Duty, which is obviously the best stratagem they have access to, the +1 AP, +1 strength. And of course, that's part of the combo with the Immolator to, go, to AP2 ignores cover on the autocannons, and you can pretty much just kind of kill everything with that. And when I don't need that, the sisters obviously are the pieces, but I was prioritizing CP cycling secondaries every game. Every single game, I would be cycling most turns. Anytime that I ripped a card that required me to do an action or give up an activation, if I could do it with my big knight, like my Warden, who was already hiding, I would. Like, I was doing sabotage with that. I did a couple of locusts with him as well, because he's still able to shoot, being a Titanic character. And if I pulled a secondary that said you're not allowed to activate, but you get some points, I just cycled it.
Something
the exception
like
the exception being like if I had a model that wasn't going to do anything, like I would do a cleanse. I 100% would do containment, especially if I would do containment actually only if I got to do it with the Immolator or Unit of Sisters for one of them. Really? I wasn't going to give up two night activations even for containment.
Did you find that puts you in a bit of a points hole giving up cards, or was it fine because you're just cycling so fast?
I was cycling so fast. Yeah, literally, I was cycling so dang fast, and let me just quickly look at my scores. I don't believe I scored. Yeah, I didn't score below 90.
Wow. Okay, so obviously, like, the lack of theoretical secondary play had no actual impact on you. That's really cool.
I would cycle 4 times a game, man. 4 freaking times a game.
That's amazing. So you're cycling 4 or 5 times a game. I know Squire's Duty, as you said, +1 strength and AP, kind of as necessary as a stratagem. And then I guess it's rotate ion shields. That's about it.
Never once ever did I rotate.
You don't even rotate? You got big knights out of. How are you not rotating?
One of them already has a 4-up invuln. The other one you can't see until I don't use until like turn 4 anyway. So
on turn 2, when you put your baby Helverins or whatever onto the midfield objectives and your opponent brings their guns out, you're not rotating?
I would no. I'd rather save it for a 5-up invuln reroll if he's going to die, and wait to have full knowledge of if it's going to die or not before I make that choice.
Fascinating.
Yeah,
what is that CP discipline? Is that just because you're spending them on cycling cards?
Correct. Usually I only have one.
Yeah, it makes sense when you say it like this. It's just kind of an opposite priorities, right? I feel like Knight players often prioritize survival over scoring points.
Well, I got that from the bondsman ability that I took, and I got that from the 4-up invuln that I took on my other big knight. So I got the durability from the army rules, not via the CP. So the CP could be used to generate score.
So interesting. Okay. It's starting to kind of flip
flipped it on its head, didn't it?
It's a little backwards, a little down under even.
Yeah. Hey, nice.
Okay. So with this army, it's very tailored for your meta. You're not sure about the replayability. I know you play a lot of teams. This was a singles event. How do you think this army is overall into a pure open environment?
I think it's fine. I think it's absolutely fine. Like all knight armies, I suppose the Armiger list is the one that has the most success because it has the most even performance across the board. I don't want to play that. If I wanted to play Armigers, I would just play Chaos Knights. When I play Imperial Knights, I want to play big stompy robots. I demand that I play them. So it's really not a choice for me. It wasn't actually a choice of whether I play the Armiger list or not. I was playing a list that had a minimum one big, if not two bigs.
Yeah.
And when I found two bigs that I was happy with, I decided I was going to go with it.
They're so fascinating. Now, what about your other options within the same spectrum? So, I mean, like you have 3 Helverins, 3 Armigers. That could be 6 of one and 0 of another, or some other split breakdown.
I have exactly the points to go 6 Warglaives. I have 30 points left. It's 10 points difference. I could make every Helverin Warglaive, and I'd be at 2,000 points and possibly happier with my life.
Yeah,
but
or you could even go the other direction and just go 6 Helverins and do something with 60 points. What's your thought process on this ratio?
Pretty much the matchups. It was pretty much a matchup decision. I knew there was matchups out there that I'd need to be active turn 1. I didn't like the idea of having 6 Helverins and having to throw them out turn 1 just to be tapped by nonsense. And so therefore it demanded that I take something that had some pressure to it, had some melee ability to it. And plus it's no good surviving on like 1 wound with a -1 damage Helverin if it just gets tapped by a Rhino. Like what's that guy doing the rest of the game? He's pretty useless. I wanted enough there that I had a 1 Helverin redundancy on the 2 Helverins that I thought I'd need for the Squire's Duty Immolator combo. Because if you only have 2 Helverins and 1 gets popped, all of a sudden you are not doing enough with the Squire's Duty combo to kill things like Centurions, things like Vindicators, things that can proc AOC and be in cover. Like you're just not doing enough. And so the 3 was the minimum I could go with for the Helverins, and that kind of just told me I could only have 3 Warglaives. Essentially, it was almost like, okay, so the major damage output bomb that I can throw requires a minimum of 2 Helverins and the Immolator. So I guess I need to take 3 because I'm not an idiot, and I know redundancy. I'm priced in. I'm priced into this. It's too good not to take. It's too good not to wield the Squire's Duty combo. It's probably the best thing that Knights have. Actually, it is the best thing that Knights have right now. And so not taking that would have been just incorrect in my opinion.
Now, the other thing I found super fascinating, Adam, is you've just opted out of Assassins here in lieu of Knights and Sisters. Any thoughts to those Assassins?
Absolutely. I really would love to have taken an Assassin, but fortunately there's no Assassin for 30 points. There was a different configuration that I had, which had a Ministorum Priest and a Calidus, and then it freed up enough points to do some other little bits and pieces with. Because of course you need something that's that can go in the Immolator, and the Priest is the cheapest thing that can go in it. But I realized like the most free, because I had so few Knights, because I wasn't playing the Armigers, the most freeing thing I could actually do is have Sticky. It was actually having Sticky was actually more important than having the Calidus.
And Sisters gave you Sticky.
Correct. I prioritized Sticky over the up and down of the Calidus, the better secondary game, to have more insurance, because anytime you don't need to leave a Knight at home is just, wow, you get another power piece in your army, essentially. So, and the fact that I could take a unit of relatively good sisters, 5 relatively good sisters, and then a unit of 5 crappy sisters, they sticky my home, and then they advance towards the middle to become a problem and threaten to sticky something else. And anytime you have to shoot those sisters, absolute freaking win. If I can make you kill those sisters, like make you have to kill those sisters, or the Immolator, or any of that, I feel like I'm always getting ahead. I feel like that is just like a net gain for me. Anytime you turn a gun away from a Knight, I'm getting ahead, in my opinion.
You don't think it's a case of like, I'm shoot the storm bolters at the Sisters and the las cannons at the Knights? Isn't it giving your opponent like the option to efficiency his profiles?
When the only thing that they have to shoot at is a -1 damage Armiger, all the little storm bolters and crap
actually threats, that's fair.
They're just as threatening as the heavy bolters. They're just as threatening as the plasma guns at times as well. If they've got twin linked and stuff like that, it's actually just as frustrating. So I was just like, anytime I can divert any resource or even any brain power, like I feel like Knight players, and this would just be a tip for me, having played against numerous Knight players, they play very face up 40k. They play very face up.
Yes.
And one of the reason I didn't take Canis and I took the Lancer was because I wanted to add X Factor into my Knights list.
Because he's so fast?
Because he's so fast, and because Canis is so predictable. Canis is a face-up, 10-inch moving big Knight. Doesn't do anything special, just moves 10 inches and mollywops the absolute living crud out of, like, probably 2 things. But very easy to move block. You just move something like 9 inches away from where he wants to go, and all of a sudden he's moving 6 inches, doesn't make it through a wall. Cool, you've controlled Canis.
Right.
A rapid ingress in melee Knight that moves 14, and has a free tank shock, and that's a 4-up invuln, was actually like, wow, this just adds so many extra layers and doubles down on the effect of my opponent hopefully not knowing the exact number of activations required for its removal, which of course is what I was going for with the -1 damage Armigers.
Dude, that's really fascinating because I've known it to be true, right? Like when you said you have a Lancer, I'm like, man, that thing is move 14, advancing and charging. His threat potential through walls is so much more difficult to stop, predict, and move block than like Canis Rex or something, like you said. And I really like I'm sold on that guy being awesome. I'm actually kind of surprised that you rapid ingress him, not with respect to context of your list, but I've played against Brian Jones a bunch of times, and he's ran the Lancer straight towards my expansion objective on turn 1. And then I immediately have to devote like God knows how much attention to the Lancer, who might not even die, as you pointed out. But then, I've not even addressed the midfield, which also has a knight on it, or Brian's expansion, which would have another knight on it. So it's kind of using that as the first layer, the Lancer. Have you ever considered that different playstyle approach?
Oh, absolutely. So in 2 of my 6 games, I deployed the Lancer, and absolutely deploying the Lancer is key. And we'll talk about, I'm sure you're going to ask me at some point, what would I change? And I definitely do have some thoughts on the Lancer, because whilst it was like probably the best distraction card effects I've ever had in any list, it was also a little damage anemic, because the vast majority of the things that are predators has an invuln. And so it was going in and like killing 1 Paragon Warsuit.
Yeah,
which
that's embarrassing.
After the tank shock, he tank shocked for like 1.
That's just not real.
Yeah, I know, but still, like it only averages tank shock 4 anyway.
Yeah.
So it was very reliable. It wasn't going to kill with the single tank shock. Wasn't going to kill that. But yeah, stuff like that happened a lot. And then I thought about the Crescents of Bile matchup, where it goes in with its 10 attacks, hitting on 2s, wounding on 3s, into possessed and kills like 3, and stuff like that. And I have thoughts on the Lancer. It worked really well in this environment and in this mission, but I may not. In this event, but I may not take it again. I may drop it for another night.
Let's just hop into that. I mean, what changes are you considering?
Well, I wanted to backpedal for 1 sec. So when you said, you deploying the Lancer on the table and just moving it 14 inches, when you rapid ingress the Lancer, you're essentially just done the same thing. If you rapid ingress on turn 2, you essentially just did the same thing as deploying it, but you put a huge amount of uncertainty into your opponent's brain.
Right.
And that's the difference. The difference is if it's moving up 14 turn 1, it's probably not declaring a charge if your opponent's good. And so therefore, when a rapid ingress is on turn 2, it's probably about where it could have been turn 1 if it moved 14 inches anyway, but you just put a huge amount of uncertainty and mess with their plans, a whole lot more. Like the psychological damage.
I think a lot of players look at a rapid ingress into their own deployment zone, or like into an area they could have deployed and then walked early, and they're like, why did I spend CP to do this? I could have just been there. I could even be further up the table if I had just deployed. But that the ability to flex that mid game and cause your opponent's uncertainty and be able to react, that's so valuable.
Absolutely. Like I said, night players generally, it's pretty hard to play janky knights. There's not really many ways to play janky knights. It's all fairly face up and predictable. So just taking a little bit of X factor, I found invaluable.
Makes a lot of sense. I love that X factor in games. I think that is largely what separates the people who win the tournaments from the people who do well at the tournaments.
Fair call. And so as for list changes, the Lancer's coming out for the Atropos. Essentially, that was kind of an auto switch in my brain. First and foremost, I really could not threaten even a Rust, let alone a Dawn from range, and I had to win that game in other ways because I did play against that matchup. And I was very happy I was able to, because I was very proud of that game and the way I played it. But having the Atropos, using the same strategy with the Atropos, it technically hits just about as hard as the Lancer because it's got 1 more attack and sustained hits. So against the vast majority of targets, it hits pretty much the same, but is a legitimate shooting threat. And I will tell you right now, not once in any game did I use the uppy-downy ability of Mysterious Guardian, because, of course, if you uppy-downy the Lancer, it doesn't shoot for damn. So what are you doing with the uppy-downy? You're essentially just trying to keep it safe. And why would you try and keep it safe if you can make your opponent point more guns at it? Because usually it's in your opponent, it's right in their grill, either in their DZ or right in front of their army when they're trying to kill it. So it actually, whenever I was in the position to bounce it back to my own lines, I was like, it's actually better just staying there and making my opponent deal with it.
Yeah, I was actually thinking the uppy-downy would be good on the Warden to go from behind your own ruin to something threatening.
Yeah, for sure. If only they could take 2 enhancements, right?
Oh, because the other one's an enhancement, the 2 bond abilities.
The double bonds ability. Yeah. So yeah, the Atropos comes in for that, and outside that, I probably wouldn't change it. I probably wouldn't change anything. I'd run with that and see if it gave me the same efficiency, and if it gave me the same results and the same confidence, then I wouldn't change a thing. If not, I'd start tweaking with pretty much everything. And like I said, I got some fears about this into Thousand Suns, because of course. -1 damage versus dev wounds the army probably doesn't hold up, but we will see how that goes when we get to it.
Yeah, of course. Awesome, Adam. I got one more question before we head off to part 2 of this conversation, talk about your actual games played. If you had a piece of advice for someone who's looking to get better at Warhammer, what would it be?
Ooh. Don't always ask yourself what you can do to your opponent. Always ask what your opponent's going to do to you.
What does that mean?
So we always talk about, if you do this, I'm going to be able to do this to you. And then usually I find that sentence ends with a full stop for most people in their head. They don't think about what is going to be the clapback should they make that play. I see this happen a lot. Hell, I actually saw this happen. I recently just watched the Thousand Suns game, Mr. Mann's Thousand Suns game versus John Lennon, which is on YouTube. You can go check that out right now as well. And on turn 2, I can't remember if it was turn 2 or turn 3, he shot up 2 Mutaliths on the flanks. And he's like, cool, I've got these 2 big beasties which are well supported and, should be fine, yada, yada, yada. I'm going to kill these 2 or 3 units. And I wonder if he asked himself, what happens if both these models die? Because what happened, well, go watch the game, but what happened wasn't great. And so I find a lot of people only looking at the proactive things that they're going to do in a game. Like, yeah, I'm going to go flip that objective. And then you're like, okay, but what happens if your opponent flips yours? And that's kind of the thing I'd want to put in people's heads. Try and think about what your opponent's going to do just as much as you think about what you're going to do.
I love that. I think a lot of players often be like, I can counter what you're trying to do this way. But of course, if I do something different, you also have agency. You can make decisions and you can adjust your plans too, right? Like having that back and forth, like, all right, if I do this, then what can they do back? That really helps level you up. I totally agree. Awesome, Adam.
Cool.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, man. It's been great talking to you.
Always a pleasure, my man.
All right, listeners, thank you so much for listening. We literally can't do the show without you. We don't do the show without you. If you haven't listened to Art of War Down Under, where Adam does his reviews on all the different rules and his State of the Meta talks, definitely give it a listen. It's also on Patreon. It's also on our YouTube channel. Adam's a great host. He gets great guests. It's a wonderful experience. And don't go anywhere besides patreon.com/AOW40K, where you can subscribe to part 2, because Adam and I are going to talk about that good stuff. We're going to talk about his matchups round by round by round through this tournament. Adam, I want to thank you again for coming on the show.
Always a pleasure, man. Love it.
And listeners, we will catch you over in part 2.
Like what you just listened to? Check out Art of War Down Under and Art of War Unbroken on the competitive 40K network. TheArtOfWar40K.com.